And welcome back to the SportsMe Soccer Podcast. It is an interesting week in America, not just the red and blues, of Everton and Liverpool, but the red and blues of the Democrats and Republicans. What a week it's been, and not just a week in America, but what a week it's been in the English Premier League. We are joined by welcoming back Victor in the left corner, who was absent last week, and Catherine, who has kind of gone MIA, even though Chelsea seem to be doing pretty well lately, hasn't been able to discuss about it. And obviously Sam we have in the corner as our moderator as usual. Victor, another bland week of the Premier League. Like nothing really exciting happened. I think things are kind of starting to get back to normal. I don't know about you, but certain results I've seen this week have just been like one or two upsets, but the rest seem normal. What are your takes on the getting back to normal of the Premier League?
Yeah, no, for sure. We saw some really crazy results in the beginning of the season, but now I think teams are getting into a groove and we're starting to see results that are a bit more, I guess you could say, predictable. Here and there, we see some teams losing by margins. Like this week, we had Villa winning 3-0 against Arsenal. I think people might have said Villa would win that game, but 3-0 scoreline, I think, was a bit of a surprise, especially after Arsenal beating Man U last time. But yeah, it seems to be a bit more back to normal, which I guess
I want to bring up a point because you just mentioned Arsenal, and they've been a big talking point because United, we know they're in the rocks. United, we know Oli is working on a very thin wire. Pochettino is he's literally announced saying, "I'm waiting for my project." We all know he's just waiting for him to get fired and he can swoop right in. My question is the following: Arsenal are also on a tightrope. What are your thoughts on Arteta? Because they're in a direction where like commentators and reporters are saying they're in the right direction, they're going the right way, but they're still losing very important games. They like win two, they lose two. It's topsy turvy. Is Arteta in the firing line, or is he safe for now?
I think he's definitely safe for now. I mentioned this a while ago, that weekend where Liverpool and Man U both lost big, and there was just very different moods. I think it's the same thing with Arsenal and Man U. They seem to be in similar positions. They'll like lose one, win one, et cetera, both big clubs with big histories that aren't doing well. But there seems to be a very different mood around. And that's just because, I guess similar to when Ole first took over, Arteta has done really well. He hasn't been in the job as long as Ole has now at this point. So he has that. On top of the fact that he's won trophies and Ole hasn't. He has an FA Cup. He has a Community Shield, which you could say is a preseason tournament, but still something, and they beat us. So
my other question is though, you're on trophies, you're talking about that point. Should Ole leave? Pochettino hasn't won anything. Is he the right man to lead United? Yes, he might lead them to, getting back into the top four and that glory, but is he a trophy-winning manager that's going to get them back to their glory days?
I mean, obviously, it's tough because there isn't a manager out there that's available similar to Mourinho going to Spurs, who's like a serial winner, as they call it. So that's a bit tough. But the thing with Pochettino is that at least he's a bit more proven. We saw him lead Spurs to their first ever Champions League final, and we saw them become a consistent top four team and fighting for titles. And that's before Daniel Levy was spending the money. So if you see a Pochettino at Man U, I could see that being dangerous. It's kind of similar to Klopp, who when he first came to Liverpool, everyone was talking about the finals he lost. And like, is he really the person to make Liverpool winning team again? And look at us now. Sometimes things just don't work at clubs for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just unlucky with Spurs losing in the Champions League final, like an early penalty, which completely changed the game. Like just things like that happen. So it's just different. It's different at wherever he goes, but Pochettino is a million times better than Ole, and he has proven that. So I don't think we can even compare.
it'll just interest me to see what happens. And like we keep saying every week that it's great to see United lose because it really is. But at the same time, it's United with the glory of the era that we're in, and like we just don't know what's gonna happen. Let's move on to some of the games of this
of
week.
course, to be fair, they did win this weekend.
Sorry.
They did.
Yeah,
win
they did win this weekend, and
you're just trying to move on before we talk about the actual result.
No, I was actually going to go into these games, but now that we broke out the Everton game, we can start off with it in this podcast. It was an interesting game. It was 3-1. Everton started really well. Bernard, it's good to see him back on the score sheet. He's been on the fire. He's been on the fire, but I like Bernard. I think he gets too much stick just because he's a small person. And he's it's Bernard. I think it's great. You be Brazilian. I'm sure you have your say on Bernard. Look, it was an
just a quick little side note. As I've mentioned to you, he came up through the youth academy of Atlético Mineiro, which I have the jersey on right now. Is the team that I've supported ever since I was born. I was just born into it. So he came up through a youth academy and was a big part of our glory years where we won our first ever Libertadores title. So I have huge love for him. So the only Everton player I will genuinely say I love. So every time I see him on the score sheet, I'm happy.
And look, Bruno Fernandes and even Edison Cavani. So look, and I've been saying it for the last few weeks, and I think I don't know if it's Pickford. I don't know what it is. I think we're missing Richarlison. Everton are in a slump, and this really will be a test for Ancelotti to see his legendary works. Is with a week off, can he whip them back into shape? And what better way to rip us back into shape than playing against Fulham coming up? And Fulham aren't having the greatest record, and we just can't lose that game because otherwise fans will start turning on Ancelotti. And I think you're right. Ollie is, he's winning these slow games and he keeps bringing him in, but we'll see what happens. And I don't really have much more to say about the game. Just the fact that I think we have to wait and see what happens when Richarlison comes back. Now, moving on to the next game that I want to talk about, actually, just to mention briefly before we talk about Liverpool, is a very interesting one. Is Southampton? They just seem to keep on winning and doing really, really well. And I just want to know if you have any thoughts. Look at the stats for this game: 15 shots to Southampton, 4 shots to Newcastle, 8 shots on target, 2 shots on target to Newcastle. And look, they're just doing really well. I want to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw actually when after they won that game, they were in first place for the first time in years. And I think the Southampton Twitter account, they poked fun at the whole American election, tweeting out the table saying "stop the count" the same way Trump did, and I just thought it was the funniest thing. And they literally sold T-shirts, and I just think it's hilarious. And I love little things like that. Southampton, it's they're not expected to do much more than just avoid relegation. So when they do well, it's nice to see. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for them. I always like teams that are known for developing youth talents, and Southampton are one of those clubs. It's good to see them doing well. It's good to see Danny Ings doing well, as I always mentioned. Theo Walcott's still going strong somehow. But again, it's an interesting year, but they're definitely playing a lot better than most people expected them to.
And I wonder if Everton's now regretting, getting Theo Walcott out of the door. But who knows what could happen. And on to another game. Again, we'll probably end off with the Liverpool game because there's lots to discuss there. But Aston Villa versus Arsenal. Same thing with Villa. They just they keep losing a few games and they keep winning a few games. For Arsenal, with their struggling form, it's just it is expected. And the biggest upset of the week that I would have to say is probably Crystal Palace Leeds. I think this is the first time we've seen Leeds not play to their best. What is crazy, though, is that Palace had 35% possession and Leeds had 65% possession. Yeah. Shots on target were 10-9, but the scoreline just doesn't reflect, even though there wasn't an own goal. What do you make of these games when players just teams out of random just, flunked, kind of like what happened a few weeks ago. We may not mention that one again, but why do you think this? Why do you think this happens on an ongoing basis? Is it injuries, or what does it lead to?
It just kind of happens. I mean, it's like similar to Everton, and I think Villa as well, just with how crazy the season has been and how well those three teams started. Like, we kind of have high expectations. Like, we got to look at things in perspective, and like Leeds are a team that are in the Premier League for the first time in, I think, over 20 years, 16 years, something like that. So when you look at that, it's like they are out of the relegation zone, and that's all they want. They just want to establish themselves again. But they just started off so well and just playing this beautiful football that everyone was kind of like, whoa, like, can Leeds like challenge for like top six? Like, narrative in this sport changes so quickly. Like, and it's a bit ridiculous sometimes, and I hate it, but it's just how it is now. So yeah, like Leeds lost 4-1. They lost 4-1 last weekend against Leicester, and they were completely outplayed, but like, it's to be expected. Like, you can't expect Leeds to go out and be a consistent like Premier League side. Like, Palace, even though they're not the best team in the league, like, they've been here for years. They have Premier League experience. It's like these things come into play, especially now. I think the other real factor is the fact that something I want to talk about later, just the fixture congestion is just ridiculous. So a newly promoted team who plays high pressure the way that Leeds do, it's eventually going to catch up to them. And I feel like that's what we might be seeing now.
Another game that, and we keep talking about managers that were in the firing line. Lampard is doing a phenomenal job at Chelsea. He's really, sticked it to the critics. Chelsea have lost only one game in the last six. 4-1 victory. Werner scoring. Abraham scoring. Chilwell scoring. Silva scoring, and just a really dominant Chelsea performance. It was, 20 shots on target, 6 shots for Sheffield, 71% possession. What is Chelsea doing right? Why are they, back in the winning circle?
Obviously, it's not this simple, but I don't think it's a coincidence that as soon as Mendy comes in, that they suddenly have this amazing run of form. Like, that isn't a coincidence, in my opinion, just because of the fact that keepers make such a big difference. Since Mendy has come on, the only game where like they had a really bad result was Chelsea 3, Southampton 3, and Kepa played in that game because Mendy was injured. So ever since then, they kept clean sheets against Palace, Sevilla, Man U, Krasnodar, Burnley, Rennes, and they conceded 1 against Sheffield. Again, Thiago Silva has been playing really well. Special shout out to him. Ben Chilwell. So things seem to be clicking, but I think Chelsea finally have a really good goalkeeper. I remember him playing really well against Man U, especially, and that makes a big difference to the defense in the whole, as a whole. I remember just the difference in the Liverpool defense before we signed Alisson and after we signed Alisson. When you sign a top keeper, it makes a huge difference.
And that's why I keep saying, like, play it, like, teams should fork out the money for a good keeper.
Yeah.
They really should. I think it's gonna come. I know Everton started the trend with Pickford, which obviously didn't work out well, but they should be spending the money on keepers. And it's just it's kind of like in the Australian and the MLS system of the world of like football, the world of soccer. It's when it comes to teams, they want to buy the big names so people will come watch them play, but they never do well because these players are like 38, 39, 40 when they come. But like something that Sydney FC did, which is like, the team that I support, is they actually bought players who, might not be named players, but they can actually play. And then they turn into named players because they're playing well. And it's the notion that, you have to spend the big money on the scoring players. No, it should be the Moneyball effect. You should be spending, the whole notion of buying players should be what part of the team is being affected. And if, the part of the team being affected is the keeper, then you should spend all the money you need on a keeper. Like, it's just logical sense, no?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. I feel like people forget that because, like, honestly, I think Mendy was their biggest transfer of the window. And obviously, this is a window where they signed Ziyech, who's been amazing, Werner, who's been amazing. But it's like, what's the point if they're going to keep conceding 3 goals every game with Kepa in that? Like, so I think I totally agree with you there. Like, there's definitely it's beginning to like happen more now, but keepers weren't as valued as they should be, and I think people are really finally starting to see that. But about Frank Lampard specifically, I still do think he is a good manager. Since we're talking about like these three are always kind of going to be in the same conversation now, just because they're like 3 club legends: Ole, Mikel, and Lampard. And I think Lampard's the best out of the 3, at least at the moment. Arteta's a bit too soon, but
Does Arteta have the Arsenal legend status?
I think so. I want to say legend, but like cult hero, maybe a better word.
Let's put that in battle to our SportsMe viewers who will be on the app very shortly. Do you think Arteta, the same way Oli and the same way Lampard are
No, it's
considered
not. No.
legends of the club, does Arteta have a legendary status at Arsenal? Interesting question. Victor, what is your response?
Yeah, no, I like definitely not to the level of Frank Lampard and Ole. Like, definitely not. But he spent 5 years at the club, a good 5 years, the last period where Arsenal were really dominant, and he retired there. So I think there's not necessarily legend status, but there's like a special place, like in the heart of Arsenal fans for sure.
Definitely. Interesting. Don't know where he stands in the Everton status, but we always just remember him as that 10 million. Where's that 10 million, Ken? Right? Where's it all gone? And I think that went straight to the banks, and I think that's what really upset the fans the most. Now, moving on to our main topic of conversation, and probably one that you definitely have a lot to say about. Liverpool, it's interesting. I think I saw a post the other day that there's literally a starting 11, which would probably dominate in the Premier League if they were actually a team all out. And it's coming to a part of the season where a lot of games are going to be played, especially next month when it comes to before the Christmas and the New Year's break. Could this be a test for Liverpool because they're currently in third? Leicester, Spurs are in really well. Chelsea coming up there. Who knows how long Southampton will hold into the glory. What is your thoughts on Liverpool? And do you think you guys have a depth of a team with the youth players, which we've seen some of the youth players come up last season and play really well. They dominated in the derby. They dominated in other places. Is there enough to win the league again with the current injuries you guys have?
We strengthened their depth a lot, but the one position we didn't was center back, and that's where the 2 major injuries are with Van Dijk and Joe Gomez. So our 2 starting center backs are out. Fabinho was out. He will be back for the Leicester game next week, I'm pretty sure. But again, he was injured, and Joe Matip seems to be injured all the time. So the thing is just, will we be able to have the center backs for that? I want to say yes, but also it's kind of cheating. To explain what I mean by that is, I think we can, if we can hold on until January where we can sign another center back. So that's what I mean by it's kind of cheating, because it's like, I don't think our depth could do it for a whole season, but I think we have enough to make it till January. At this point, we need a big name center back. Like obviously it's more difficult without fans. Everything with COVID, we don't have as much money to spend, and we spent money in the summer. But I think the owners are going to have to dig deep into their pockets here and get like a Upamecano. I would love to see him at Liverpool, just someone like that, because we are missing our 2 starting center backs for the season. I think Joe Gomez might make it before the end of the season, but at that point, it's like, what's the point? If we're out of the Champions League, we're out of a title race, we're out of everything. There's no point anymore. I do have faith though. Like, I mean, what's the point if like I was just sitting here and I was just like, let's end the season. Like, what's the point of me even like watching the games anymore? Like, I still very much have faith in this team. For right now, Fabinho and Matip will be our center back partnership. I'll have to wait and see how that goes. But I trust Klopp. I trust this team. Like, we still have Alisson, who's a world class keeper behind that. Thiago, who is supposed to be fully fit by the Leicester game, will be back playing defensive mid. So our team is still really good. It's as long as Matip and Fabinho can stay healthy. And then after that, we have Reece Williams, who has been playing really well. And then if we could just hold on, that's like, I've repeated that probably like 3 times already. If we could just hold on, stay within the top 3, 4, 5, not too far adrift going into January, I think we could retain the league title.
And like people keep thinking, oh, January transfer window, not many people that you can get around the world. But there's been a lot of famous transfers that have happened in the transfer January window. For example, Luis Suarez has been pretty famous. He arrived at Anfield. He just came to Liverpool in January of 2011. That was a big transfer. Vidic, a massive transfer. He was unknown until Ferguson literally brought him into the team. Daniel Sturridge, he was to take a chance on him. Liverpool decided to buy him. What a bargain, I guess he ended up being. Yeah. Matic, Evra, there were all these players that could be available like in the January transfer window, and I think the fact that a lot of these clubs have seen the way their teams have performed, such as Aston Villa, such as Leeds, such as Everton, Southampton, I wonder if they're going to break the bank, and I'm really curious to see if these teams will put in the money and will show. What are your thoughts? Do you think a lot of teams will be the same as always, or do you think the fact that they've had results will make them want to buy better players and will buy better players?
I think it might be a bit more quiet just due to the fact that clubs are making less money without fans. So I think it'll be a bit more quiet unless I would love for us to just hear that this new vaccine comes out and it just works brilliantly and we can have fans back soon. Then I think owners will be okay with spending in January because they know that the revenue stream will be back and flowing. But like England just went into lockdown again, so I don't know how it's looking out there. And I don't see clubs really spending a lot in January. But then you obviously have clubs like us where we have one like natural senior center back that is healthy and he's injured every other week. And Trent also got injured. He's out for a few weeks. Hopefully it won't be anything reoccurring. So I think we'll definitely have to spend. And then it just depends. Like obviously like it feels like we're so far into the season because it's already in November, but we're only 8 matches in now, match day 8 of 38.
It really does. It really feels like, I think it comes back to the original point you made a few weeks ago, like because of this short off season, it literally feels like we're in the exact same season, just like the table be reset. And it's just like, I love it and I love football and I'm happy it's all here. But like, it's just like, you look at the table and you're like, oh yeah, it's only 7 games. They're not 25 games in yet. And it's just like, it's really interesting to see that and to see the ways developing. And I guess, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Now, moving on to our interesting takes of the week, our hot fuzz. I have something very interesting which you might find very comical. If that's even a word, we can look that up, but I'm pretty sure comical is a word. This week in Australian football, because of COVID and because of the travel restrictions, Sydney FC had a friendly against the Australian under-23 team. And it just made me laugh that like a national team was playing against a club team. I'm just wondering if you've ever experienced like that before with like teams that you know of that have played international teams. I know Australia played Manchester United back in 2000, But I'm just wondering, have you, excuse me, have you ever experienced a international team playing a club team? And on that point, which club team do you think would be a good matchup against an international team?
It used to be a thing. Like before I was like 2000s, like 90s, like before I was even born, like that's when national teams used to play club teams all the time. I wish it would happen more often now. Like I think there was like maybe I think Barca played like Qatar or something, but like obviously like before we used to see like Brazil playing against like club teams and like things like that, like back in the 70s and the 80s. I'd love to see that again personally. It's just obviously tough because it's like the big teams like Barcelona, like most of them play for Spain, so they couldn't play Spain, and it would be a bit tough. But I've personally never seen it because it's not a thing anymore. To answer your question about who would win,
No, not who would win. Who would you want to see as a key matchup? Like which club and which national team would you think would be a really good clash on paper as both like against each other, and who do you think would come out on top?
Ooh, I'd love to see like something with like the World Cup winners against like the Club World Cup winners, something along those lines. So like a Bayern France or like a Liverpool France, Real Madrid France.
Victor, I think you're onto an idea. If anyone from FIFA is listening, if you're one of our many thousands of viewers that are listening to our podcast on a weekly basis, we should send this to FIFA. I think that's a fantastic idea. You should have the winner of the World Cup playing the winner of the FIFA Club World Cup.
Yeah, I think something like that would be like amazing. Even though technically Bayern didn't win it this year because there weren't any, but like just something like that.
I mean, like see Bayern playing like a team like Brazil, I think that would just be an insane game. Or like even who is top team at the moment? Is it Belgium still?
Technically, it is Belgium, but I think the FIFA rankings are very, very stupid, and I don't.
Yeah, no, 100%. We all know that FIFA is just corrupting every single line of the way. But yeah, I just thought that was pretty comical. Sydney FC actually ended up winning, which is pretty funny.
I mean, that was gonna be my next point. I think the club side will win every time, just because of the fact that they train like week in, week out. There's a reason why you rarely see these like incredible national teams anymore, because I maybe bar like the 2010 Spain team, but most of them played either at Barca or Real, so they trained together. These national teams don't get enough time to train together, so they don't gel and have that chemistry or like that tactical understanding that you get with a club side. So I think like if Bayern were to play France, like Bayern would win easily.
Which team do you think is better? Do you think the Germany, the Spain team of 2010? Or do you think that Brazilian team of like 2002 and the 06, who would you think would win in a key matchup? Because that's a tough one. That Spain team was just like, the Euros. But the other question is, did the Spain team have enough competition around them in order to make it? So it can go either way. I would say me personally, I would say the Brazilian team. It's just they were that good and they were in an era of such top players. But at the same time, what are your thoughts, Victor?
It's really tough. That's actually a really good question. That's making me think. I think individually, like if you went person per person, Brazil has more talent, especially in their attack. When you look at like Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, Kaká off the bench, like we had Cafu like bombing forward, Roberto Carlos. But I think that Spanish team, just the football they played was just amazing. So it's like, would Brazil even like touch the ball? But the thing is, like when Brazil touches the ball and you have like Ronaldinho and Ronaldo in their primes running at you, it's hard to defend. So it's definitely tough. That's actually really good.
I would love to see like Fabregas or Ronaldo just up against just like a phenomenal. It's just that Spanish team was just it was iconic, but at the same time, like the Brazilian team, like every time I think of that Brazilian team, it reminds me of that Pepsi World Cup commercial where like the wrestlers with the fat
I've seen that one.
With the fat sumo wrestlers. It's just like that's my image of like that's how iconic they were. Or just like they were like the face of like that World Cup. It was just like, and I just remember seeing Ronaldo, just like original Ronaldo, just dominating and like just the size he was, and he was able to just we just don't. Well, I'm gonna say we don't make players these days. I like because we have Messi and Ronaldo, current Ronaldo, but like there's just something different about those players than the legend players we are of this generation. I don't know what it is. It just they seem more iconic. I don't know if you agree.
I think it's definitely a like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Nostalgia.
Yeah, a nostalgia bias.
Like Ronaldo and Messi are phenomenal players, but I don't think I'm ever gonna have a nostalgia when they're gone. Kind thing.
No, I think we will.
You reckon Messi or
I
not?
think so. I definitely think so. Like,
I don't know.
I literally will watch Barcelona's games just to watch Messi play. I went to a Barcelona game live in Spain just because I wanted to watch him play before he retired. So I think you definitely get that. It depends because like if you talk to like my generation, we will rate our generation higher. But if you talk to like someone that was like the generation before, they'll be like, nah, like there'll like never be anyone like R9 or Ronaldinho, Zidane, like those players.
The scary thing about like you just talking about generation is that like my generation is like 1998. Sorry, not even 98. It was like 2002 World Cup, 2006 World Cup, 2010 World Cup. That was like my growing up generation, and it's just scary how like that was like such a long way away. Like it's just like now we're in 2020, almost 2021. It's just like it amazes me how things are growing and things are escalating. But yeah, maybe we'll put that better as well. Who do you think would win? Sorry, the first question would be what what international and club matches would you want to see being played? And who do you think would win? The Brazilian team of 2002 or the Spain team of 2010? Victor, what's your hot files for the week? Do you have anything interesting to say besides about Liverpool, or do you have to talk more about Liverpool since you need to make up for last week?
I mean, I was actually going to touch upon just the fact that we got a good result against City without Van Dijk and with Trent getting injured. It was just a really good game for the neutrals. Because I mean, it's a Premier League thing. Because like I could talk about the fact that my team in Brazil won 4-1 at the weekend. We're doing really well, but that's like whatever. Yeah, no, I was gonna just talk a bit about the Man City Liverpool game because like we kind of touched upon it, we didn't, but I'm just happy with the fact that we got a good result there. And in general, after Van Dijk's injury, we have not collapsed like some people kind of expected us to. We've actually kind of done better defensively, like somehow. We beat Atlanta 5-0, which I don't think a lot of people are expecting. Completely dominated. We haven't conceded a goal in the Champions League. Wins against Sheffield and West Ham, a draw away at the Etihad, which is the hardest game of the season for us. So I'm definitely happy with how we look right now. Obviously now it's a whole different beast without Joe Gomez as well. So we'll figure that out. But I think I would say that my hot fuzz of the week would be the fact that we have not collapsed without Van Dijk, which makes me very happy. And Kevin De Bruyne missing a PK, which I thought was amazing.
No, I definitely agree, which is like very rare for us to say that he would miss a penalty. And just going back on your point about Brazilian football, like I think Brazilian football is one of the most interesting and entertaining things to watch, not just for the football, but for the commentary itself. Like the commentator could literally be like just going crazy. Like you think he's going crazy, but like he's literally the player is just passing the ball. Like there's nothing like happening in play. It's literally just like
that.
Yeah, it's just like
Mexican commentators, I think, are the best for that. If you want to be entertained, Mexican football for sure. But the Brazilian league is very entertaining. We're known for being very, very balanced. To give you a bit of context of how close this league is, for you to save yourself from relegation in the Prem, usually you need what, 30 points ish? Like you see them being safe. In Brazil, you need 45. That's how close the league is in Brazil. You never really see people running away with it. At the beginning of every season, like in each of the top 5 leagues, with with the Prem probably being the most even one, you would have the same 5 or 6 candidates. In Brazil, it's close to 15, probably, because we have what is considered the Big 12, not the Big 6. So if you ever are actually just bored one day and you want to just watch Brazilian soccer, I would definitely recommend it to you, just for the fact that it's extremely even. The football being played is great. It's not the highest quality because all the amazing players go straight to Europe, but it's definitely not bad quality. It's definitely probably the best in South America. And it's always really cool to just kind of like watch these young players who you get to watch in Europe. Like Richarlison, I used to watch him play like in Brazil before he went to Everton like a few years ago. Bernard, like that I was talking about. Gabriel Jesus, who is now at Man City, won a league with Palmeiras right before he went. Neymar, who is
where was Allison?
Allison played at Inter, Internacional, but we just Inter for short. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's just like
that's where Ronaldo once playing, no? Or Ronaldinho, one of the big players used to play.
Played for their biggest rivals, Gremio.
But someone played for that team that was like a big name. Was it Juninho or was it Ronaldinho? There was some big name. Huh?
Dunga.
No, it was someone. I'll definitely research that. But yeah, definitely a link for our viewers to watch. But that's all the time we have for this week. Next week will be, well, I guess stay tuned for next week. We'll see what will happen with our podcast. It's international break. We're gonna work out what we're gonna discuss. It may be about the championship. We might see Sam and his dad make an appearance. Watford are charging up the ladder. They could be in the Premier League next season. We could see Sam with his Watford jersey. Who knows? Thank you for joining. Join us on our battles. We'll see you next week.